In today's episode, scalar energy researcher Tom Paladino enlightens us to the power of this form of energy. Join us as he explains what scalar energy is, how this instructive energy can be harnessed and used to facilitate remote healing, and how it may be the solution to our global energy crisis. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the show. And today's episode with Tom Paladino is actually an episode I wanted to have in our energy series because it fits so perfectly for that series. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to coordinate our timing. And so Tom's episode is going to come a few episodes past that series end date. But when you listen to this episode, think of it very much in line with everything that you guys listen to during the energy, frequency, vibration, magnetic series. Scalar energy is something that I've been looking into over the past couple of years. Basically, whenever you hear of something like, say, Lynn McTaggart's work on the power of intention, or when you hear the work around global prayer and global meditation and the healing ability those have remotely, meaning that you can think of something in one area and affect somebody that could be 100 miles away or in different countries. And we've actually shown that to be very true. So something's going on with that. Now, the vehicle that transmits that healing energy is often carried on scalar energy. And so I wanted to get into this in more detail. And scalar energy is sometimes tied to torsion field energy or 0 point energy. Some of these are different terms for similar things. So I wanted Tom, who's been a researcher in this area for quite some time, to join us and really break this concept down, because I really do think, again, this is where the future of medicine and healing is taking place. It's all moving to this realm of energy, frequency, and vibration. Scalar energy being one of the main vehicles for this to actually occur. So in this episode, join us as Tom breaks down and explains how scalar energy is involved in quantum healing, gives us more insights as to what it is and where it comes from. He breaks down how really there's two energies in the universe, which are scalar and electromagnetic field energy. So these things he's going to explain how they're actually interrelated. And he will explain to you how literally anybody in the planet can be treated by way of a photograph, no matter where they are in the world. So it's all pretty fascinating stuff. And Tom offers a 15-day free trial. So I think if you get a chance to give it a try, like, go check it out. Check the links below and try it out for 15 days and see if you noticed anything. And then write me back and let me know, because I'm always curious to see what people are finding. I'd also like to mention a couple things about the sponsor for our show, C60. A lot of people have asked me, why C60 from Purple Power? Well, I want to tell you some of the key things I like about this specific company. I also know the owner of the company is a really integrous person. He's really in it to try and do some good in this world. But you also got to make sure in the world of supplements that you're getting good quality supplements, and not all supplements are created equally. So some of the things I like about C60 from Purple Power is, first, it's really important that supplements get third-party tested. That means that an independent lab comes in and certifies that what you are saying is in your product is actually in your product. So they're certified for purity, quality, and concentration. I have seen studies where, particularly one on probiotics, where they were third-party lab tested and only 1 out of the 10 actually had in it what it said it was going to have in it. So they're not all created equally. You want to make sure things are being assessed and keeping people honest with what's actually in their products. The other important thing is that this is sublimated C60. So sublimation is a process where we can convert something directly from a solid to a gas. Why that's important is because it prevents you from having to use solvents to extract certain core ingredients. So this C60 is 99.99% pure sublimated C60. You will never be exposed to harmful solvents within this product. The third thing is that they have organic oils. So this C60 is in a carrier oil, and they use 100% certified organic oils that are either going to be olive oil, MCT oil, or avocado oil. And all of those are beneficial for the human being as well. They're also safety and quality controlled. They're produced in an FDA compliant facility and GMP certified. So, and if you're in the US, you get free shipping. So these are some of the things that I like, that I think put C60 from Purple Power a step above most other competitors that are selling C60. That's why I use their product. So Check them out. Links below. Use promo code DRLOKEN if you would like to try it. There's a ton of benefits from it, as it is literally the world's most powerful antioxidant that we know of to date. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoy this show, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Inspire Health podcast. And today's guest is Tom Paladino. Tom is a scalar energy researcher based in Florida. Scalar energy is the fundamental life force found everywhere in the world, space, and universe. It originates from the sun and stars. Chi, prana, om, mana, life force, pyramid energy, or 0 point energy are synonymous terms for scalar energy. He theorized that all energy in the universe initiates as scalar energy, and that the sun of our solar system and the stars of the universe are the points of origin, the storehouses for scalar energy. He further theorized that scalar energy is instructive energy, as the entire universe is instructed by this divine essence. Subsequently, all spiritual, cognitive, emotional, and physical action in the universe is initiated and maintained by scalar energy instructions. Scalar energy provides order in the universe. Tom, what a pleasure to have you on the show today.
I am honored. Thank you, Doctor.
You know, we've been talking lots about energy, frequency, vibration, this whole sort of world, talking to lots of diverse people all over the globe doing different pieces of this. And scalar energy was one of the parts that I really wanted to dive deeper into, because I remember doing work before on 0 point field and connecting to that for using healing. I know different work that's been done with intent and prayer, and some of these different things have talked about connecting to 0 point energy, or scalar energy as it sometimes is referred to. So I'm curious to kind of dive into this a little bit deeper and to explain to the audience what scalar energy is and how we can ultimately utilize it for purposes for healing, and I think well beyond just healing. So I think you're the guy to have this conversation with.
Sure. We'll start with the basics. Thank you. It's so simple. It's sunlight. What is scalar energy? Sunlight, starlight. It's the initial energy of the universe. Outside, you might see it's a sunny day, and the world, the universe, is flooded with scalar energy. But sadly, academia only realizes electromagnetic energy. There's two energies: electromagnetic energy and scalar energy. And I believe scalar energy offers greater promise than electricity. So I've made a career out of studying scalar energy. It's sunlight, it's starlight. This is not a foreign concept. I frankly tell people, everybody in the world is an expert at scalar energy. You use it every day. The mind and the heart are scalar energy vessels. So this is not a foreign concept. It's just not been recognized.
Mm-hmm. Is there an overlap then between scalar energy and electromagnetic energy? Because a lot of times you'll hear the same sorts of things, but people will talk about that as terms of electromagnetic energy. So our thoughts, our feelings, these things are all electromagnetic fields that interact with one another. Where are they separate, or do they coincide together somehow?
There are two distinct energies, and it's very simple. All energy initiates as scalar energy in the form of a double helix. It looks like a phi spiral, or it looks like DNA, a DNA coil. And then when scalar energy unbinds, it will then degrade into electricity and magnetism. So it's that simple. Scalar energy is the initial energy of the stars, and frequently it degrades into electromagnetic energy. So we have two energies of the universe. Electromagnetic energy is a subset of scalar energy.
Okay, that makes more sense then. Now, given that it is everywhere and we are exposed to it kind of 24/7 for the most part, if we're accessing it by being outside and probably not blocking it by, say, sunscreen and some of that kind of stuff that might be deterrent in too much, can you funnel it in a way where you can utilize it more specifically, or how do you sort of access it to the points where we want to be able to use it for specific aspects of healing, for example?
Right. I have a scalar energy instrument that captures scalar energy. Now, let me give you an analogy. We have electrical instruments that capture and control the stream of electrons. That's an electrical current. So if you can control electricity, electrons, then I can control scalar energy with a scalar energy instrument. It's that simple. I have developed scalar energy instruments that can collect scalar energy, control it, and then I can put it to good use.
So once you've actually collected scalar energy, So you can literally storehouse it. And then how do you then, I guess, send it? Or what's the process where someone then individually, say in somewhere in a different area of the planet, can actually be able to benefit from it? What's the way that that works? Because I know if people have ever looked into even research this, I mean, look at some of the work done by Lynn McTaggart. I mean, we interviewed Lynn McTaggart a while back, and she talked about intent. You know that seems to have, when you get into the world of quantum physics, there's non-locality of these things. You don't have to be right there. But maybe you can explain from your perspective, once you've harnessed scalar energy, how does someone, say, if you're in Florida, how does someone in Russia benefit from that harnessed scalar energy? What's the process?
You're right, it's non-local. Now, I'm going to preface my remarks with this. Scalar energy is a different dimension than electricity. It does not behave like electricity. How do I work with people? By way of their photograph. This is my photograph. People will email me a photograph, and I actually place a photograph inside my instrument. And what does that do? A photograph has my energy, my force field attached to it. So my instrument will pick up the scalar energy signature or scalar energy force field on a photograph. I never work with people. I work with photographs of people and animals. So I have to make that very clear. Now, that in and of itself is a new science. Is it valid? Yes. Does a photograph capture somebody's energy signature? It sure does. And in so doing, I can influence that energy signature on a photograph. That's what's so peculiar and so fascinating about my research.
So is the energy signature completely distinct to an individual, like we would think of, say, a fingerprint or something like that?
Exactly. Everybody has a unique scalar energy signature. Exactly.
And so then just by connecting to that energy signature, because there is sort of this non-locality to the universe, that in an instant, it can connect and find that other unique signature.
Yes. Instantly. That's the proper term. Thank you, doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because this is non-local. Everything is interconnected. If you look at scalar energy, it really is the blanket of energy. It blankets everything, meaning what? That everything in the universe is interconnected by scalar energy. Hence, all action is instantaneous.
Mm-hmm. And for some people, I mean, most of my audience is pretty aware of this. And if you followed this past series, you've heard a lot of different things that might be, but this is the next level. Like, this is where we are going to be moving more and more to. You know, it's just like Tesla said. I think you've even mentioned that before. But if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, you need to think about things in terms of energy, frequency, vibration. This is why we're doing this, because I think that we are ultimately transitioning from a biochemical model of the universe to more of an energy model of the universe. And this is what we're doing in health. We're moving more and more in that direction. And one doesn't trump the other, but often one, I find, sort of instructs the other a little bit more. So from your perspective, I think you've talked even once about Sheldrake's work with morphogenic fields. How do morphogenic fields, from your perspective, work with scalar energy? And maybe for the audience, explain a little bit about what morphogenic fields are.
Yeah, they're identical. So morphogenic fields, there's a theoretician, Rupert Sheldrake, who postured that everywhere in the universe you have this information system, and that this information system is interconnected. This information system is probably the scalar energy paradigm. It is. And that our thought patterns will create a morphogenic field. Our emotions will create a morphogenic field. Meaning what? That thinking and emotion is a scalar energy interface. It's a scalar energy emanation, which gives great credence to the point of being positive in your thinking, being of good cheer, good heart, because the way you think and the way you feel is the way you project and the reality that you create. So let me underscore that. The way we think is a scalar energy thought form. The way we feel is a scalar energy emotion. That will create the world around us. Now, you might not have influence on other people or other events, but you certainly have influence in your life. So think well and feel well.
I think those are good words to live by for everybody. You know, I remember and it's similar kind of information coming from slightly different ways. But I remember Joe Dispenza talking about it. If he said he would talk about it from an electromagnetic field perspective, but what you're kind of saying is that it starts more from a scalar energy, and then that
Yes.
deciphers down
Yes.
into. He would
Yes.
often say that how you think is the electric part of the field, how you feel is the magnetic part of the field, and together, how you think and how you feel kind of creates that electric magnetic field, which interacts in the world around you. So make sure your electromagnetic field, which is essentially an attractor field, right, is
Yes.
going to
Yes.
influence the world around you and how you
Exactly.
perceive the world around you.
Yeah. If people understood just how powerful they are, the human mind, human heart are scalar energy vessels. And what we can do with the human mind and human heart, it's unparalleled. If everybody in the world would just perform one good function a day, one good deed a day, it'd be a different world.
I love that. I would actually put that out as a challenge for everybody watching that. See if you can do one positive thing in that direction every day.
Yeah.
You had mentioned in before a couple things I want to climb into is here as well. And I think in a previous interview I was listening to, you had mentioned about how scalar energy is related with consciousness, or scalar energy is
Yes.
consciousness.
Yes.
I'd love to have you break that down a little bit because it opens up a couple of other questions for me. So when you're saying scalar energy is consciousness, can you explain what you mean by that for
Sure.
everybody?
Let's look at the universe. It abounds with intelligence. There's an infinite universe with infinite intelligence. So if you're going to have order, structure, you need intelligence. You need something to provide order out of chaos. What is that? It's consciousness or scalar energy. Now, I've always contended that the stars are the points of origin for scalar energy. Why? Because the stars never burn out, so to speak. There's no entropy. The stars keep, it's a perpetual orb, celestial body. Why? It's powered by scalar energy. If there's something that's powering a star, then that is not only infinite power, but infinite intelligence. Now, if you look at the universe with an infinite number of stars, well, that proves that there is infinite intelligence. And what is that? Another term for infinite intelligence is consciousness. Consciousness, thought form, or this intelligence, this paradigm of intelligence, it always transcends time and space. You've heard the expression at the speed of thought. Well, that's true and accurate. Why? Well, the speed of thought is instantaneous because scalar energy is instantaneous.
You'd also mentioned that it was instructive energy. And I'm going to come back to consciousness in a moment here too. But I'm totally on the same wavelength with you around this. But this opens up a really interesting conversation because I remember in an interview I was doing with RJ Spina, and he talked about in general that we are designed, human beings are designed to receive information by divine source. And that when we are not
Yes.
receiving information by divine source, then we will set up the template for illness. And so that
Yes.
essentially what we are needing to do is that we need to relook at where we are receiving energy from, and not just energy, but where we are receiving instruction for our lives from. And then are we living from that place? So
Yes.
from your perspective, how do we connect to the instructive energy that scalar energy offers? And if we're not, what are we receiving instruction from?
Yeah. I think prayer and meditation is the easiest way to tap into scalar energy. And that gives credence to the fact that some people through prayer and meditation can heal themselves because that prayer, that meditation is scalar energy instructions. Now, this is really so pertinent to this discussion. If scalar energy really is the fundament of the universe, and I say it is, then it's responsible for all action, including healing. I've often said if we lived in a perfect scalar energy environment, we would never experience sickness. We would not age. And frankly, death would be impossible. Well, let me give you an analogy to that scenario. You look at a star. Stars are perfect intelligence. They never burn out. They go through cycles, but stars never stop emitting energy. Why? It's scalar energy. So if a star is perpetual, then people can become perpetual.
So it begs the question then, what gets in the way of us being able to connect to this energy that's ultimately there for us to be able to connect to? What's blocking the connection?
That's a great point. I don't know. I've wrestled with that all my life, and frankly, I just don't think people realize that there's two energies. Okay, obviously, I live with electricity in my home, but if it were my druthers, I would rather just have scalar energy. So I'd like to see society move from electromagnetic energy to, in applications, scalar energy. It's the perfect energy.
Mm-hmm.
Suffice to say, I don't think people realize that there's two energies. If you look at a college textbook today, they'll only address electromagnetic energy. Very little attention is given to scalar energy or say, a longitudinal wave. Very little attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find it interesting. I think of it because there's a lot of conversation that's come up in this past couple of months has been around the literally upgrading or the shifts that are happening within the human physiology right now, in particular around the DNA. And when you're even talking about the double helix formation of scalar energy, I mean, you can't help but think there's got to be a relationship between that and potentially our DNA. And
Yes.
I know from conversations we've had is that a lot of it is tied back into that we are receiving literally light energy that is affecting DNA, almost unlocking dormant aspects of our DNA that is a part of our evolution as human species.
Yes. Yeah, brilliant. If you look at a scalar wave, it's the same ratio and proportion as our DNA.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do I construe from that? That scalar energy, the life force, the instructions of the universe creates DNA. We are made out of scalar energy, scalar light. What creates and maintains the DNA molecule? Scalar energy. So scalar energy is not only the life force energy, but it's responsible for the life molecule, our DNA.
Mm-hmm. What are some natural ways that people, like right now, could start to connect more abundantly to this universal energy that's really there at their disposal?
Yeah, I think the best way is, again, through prayer, meditation, positive thinking. Many people don't quite realize this, but if you're in a negative mood, it could ruin your day, and it can ruin the day of other people. So try and focus in on that positive aspect, because that will be a positive outcome. I can guarantee you, the way you think, the way you feel is the way you project yourself to the world. Now, don't look at the television and try and correct something that's out of your control. You only can pray for that. Be in charge of your mind and your emotions. I always have productive days. I see the chaos in the world. I don't participate in it. I think well and I feel well.
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. So it's energy from the sun and the stars, but a part of that we maybe have. So outside of like going and literally like being in the sun or being in the starlight, more directly, what we can do to try and connect to that is really pay close attention to how we're thinking, how we are feeling, because that's probably more directly related to our individual state of consciousness that we are holding ourselves in. Is it sort of in that perspective? I think of consciousness as being like ever expanding fields depending on where we are in consciousness, much like the work Dr. David Hawkins had done in the map of consciousness. You keep in this infinitely expanding universe, you just keep moving into larger fields. And as you move into larger, more expansive fields, you have more ability to tap into new resources that weren't available to you in other fields. So maybe healing didn't exist for you in this field of consciousness. You step into this one, maybe you can connect to even more scalar energy in a larger field of consciousness. I'm just trying to wrap my head around how they all interconnect. That's where I'm always most fascinated, is where all of these areas blend together.
If scalar energy is the intelligence of the universe, then the universe has to always be instructing itself and always be in constant communication. If you broke down that constant communication in the universe would devolve into a state of chaos. So what do I mean? Well, whether you're studying algebra or religion, or you're taking a walk in the park, all of that is intelligence, and all of that has to interconnect, and all of that has to be in order. instantaneously on an ongoing basis. Meaning what? No matter what pursuit of life you're engaged in, all of that is undergirded by this blanket of scalar energy, this intelligence of the universe, 24/7 around the clock. And that is consciousness. And that is necessary to sustain, to create and sustain the universe. This is so important. You need constant intelligence to maintain the universe. If you shut off scalar energy for a second, the universe would devolve into chaos.
Fascinating. What are some examples of how people are already connecting and using scalar energy in their own lives that they might not be so aware of? So I think of it as, if we think of it as being this instructive energy,
Yes.
how would you say people might already be connecting to it that they're not maybe associating with scalar energy?
I admire anybody that can paint. I can't say I'm a painter, a portrait now, but that's creativity. How do you start with a blank tablet and then paint? And that's creativity. Now, how do you receive that inspiration? How does that come about to start from scratch, a blank piece of paper, and then to paint something that's beautiful, aesthetically beautiful? That's scalar energy instructions. We do this naturally. If you're an accomplished painter, or you're a poet, or you can write well, or you are esteemed at math, all of that shows that you have this gift of abstraction, which is what? The ability to tap into the existing intelligence of the universe and paint, write poetry, solve math problems. All of that is fascinating to me. It had to come from somewhere. Where do those instructions come from? Where does that creativity come from? It comes from the God force.
And what's really fascinating right now is, it seems to me like people are actually, or how it's been termed in some of the different conversations, has been literally like a remembering, right? We are remembering some of these different skills that we've had, or these different abilities that are sort of coming up. They'll talk about it from tapping into our Akashic records, or however we might, or the unified field, but it's essentially that we are almost like closer and more easily being able to connect to that than we have even in the past. So I think of it like where you see a lot of these young kids coming in right now that are prodigies. I mean, they can play Mozart when they're like,
Right.
6 years old, or,
Exactly.
you see this type of stuff. So they're coming in with some kind of tapped in instructions.
Yes.
that, I think that then how I think of it is that shows up, and it reminds everybody else of what maybe our potential is as well, so that we can then start to connect to that in a larger way as well.
Brilliant. Exactly. Why was it that Mozart can compose at age 5? Most children do not have that ability. So he had this download, call it an afflatus, call it scalar energy instructions, whatnot. How could he compose at age 5? How is it that some people can master languages and be fluent in a number of languages with little effort? That's a gift.
When you're talking about scalar energy, you also talk about it related with quantum healing. So from your perspective, how do you define what quantum healing is, and what's scalar energy's role involved in quantum healing specifically?
Yeah, so there's millions of things we can do with scalar energy. I've developed 3 specific protocols through a photograph. Remember, I work with people by way of a photograph, in which I'm able to cleanse microbes, pathogens. I'm able to balance the chakras, and I'm able also to create nutrients. I do all of that through photographic force fields. Keep in mind, I only work with photographs. So this is the new science in which I don't work with people. I work with morphogenic fields that are found on a photograph. And what I've discovered is a photograph is the exact biological, spiritual, emotional, cognitive copy of me. So whatever I can experience on my photograph with my instrument reports the exact constitution of a person, in this case, myself. Meaning what? A photograph is a bilocated version of a person. A photograph is energetically alive with scalar energy, with morphogenetic fields. That's fascinating to me. And we can pick that up by a scalar energy instrument. So when I place a person's photograph in my instrument, I can clear the morphogenic field, so to speak, of viruses, bacteria. I can balance the chakras, or I can create, say, an antioxidant. I do that all by way of scalar energy instructions, working through the force field of a photograph. I work with people around the world because scalar energy is non-local. I can tap into anybody in the world by way of their morphogenetic field.
Yeah, I find that fascinating. If someone was wanting to clear, say, a pathogen that they were dealing with, would you have to know what pathogen they already had, or are your machines able to detect what might be going on, or is it send out a sort of like a dissolving frequency on an array of different things? I guess, how do you know what's what?
Yeah, I have to instruct the instrument. So I would actually place a photograph of a microbe. This is Candida albicans. It's a fungus. It's been attributed to thrush yeast infection. And if I place this photograph, say, of Candida albicans in my instrument, then my instrument will look at the morphogenetic field, the force field on the photograph of the microbe, in this case, Candida albicans, and then send that energy into a person. And in so doing, that instructions destroys Candida albicans in a person. But keep in mind, I'm only working from morphogenetic field to morphogenetic field, which is the signature of Candida albicans placed into a person's photograph that carries their signature. So it's non-local action, instantaneous action, which I can download information from a microbe into the photograph of a person.
So you'd have to have that person would have to have sort of a diagnosis of what they're already dealing with so that you could do the sort of the correction for it.
I've standardized this process in which within the span of, say, 1 hour, I can download, if you will, 400,000 species of microbes into a photograph. So I have, if you will, 400,000 photographs of species of microbes, germs such as viruses, bacteria, fungi, mold, etc. And in so doing, that serves, the photograph serves as the instructions, and then I impart those instructions into a photograph of the person. And in 1 hour, I have the potential now to identify 400,000 species of microbes. And whatever microbes are in a person, I can unbind or disassemble or eradicate or destroy those 400,000 species of microbes.
Okay. Is it similar in some ways to, I mean, what it reminds me of in the language around it is like Wilhelm Reif would have done back with a Reif machine, but I think he would do it more on someone in the physical space. This is like almost like a non-local way of using a frequency-based kind of a medicine. Is that sort of accurate?
There's been great inventors. Royal Reif was using some type of energy instrument in which he could eradicate disease, but he had to do that in person.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what do I like about my method? Well, I can work with either one person by way of a photograph, or I can work with multiple people by way of photographs. Today in my laboratory, I had about 250,000 photographs that I was working with. 250,000 photos. Yeah, it's incredible what you can do with this. It's just incredible.
I think about one thing that's gone on a lot this past while has been some larger global meditations, global prayers, things along those lines. It'd be really wonderful to be able to incorporate something like that in conjunction with a global meditation or a global prayer or something. I feel like that would just sort of all enhance the space.
It would augment.
Mm-hmm.
Sure it would.
When you are then treating, or when then you are providing the scalar instructions on, say, a pathogen or something along those lines, how do you validate? How do you know that that's receiving to the person? How do you know that what you are trying to eradicate actually becomes eradicated?
There's a way I can do that with my photograph. I can tell the presence and absence of a microbe with my photograph, okay? But in the long run, it's always a first-hand account. It's the testimony of the people. And invariably, many people say that they feel better. Now, we allow people to post their testimony anonymously on our website. We have about 3,000 testimonies now from people around the world. So that is the beginning evidence, anecdotal, but nonetheless, the beginning evidence that there is some benefit to having their force field treated on their photograph. So again, this is a new science. There is no specific scientific protocol to test this. That's how much we are in the infancy. But nonetheless, the proof is in the pudding. People feel better. That's the key.
When I think I saw, did you guys have some where people would have specific, say, PCR testing for specific
Yes.
viruses or something along those lines, and then they would show them up again where they would actually be negative after? I think there was ones for like herpes simplex virus and some other things too.
Yeah.
So I think there is some actual what we would consider sort of more Western medical kind of validation for certain things too, at least anecdotally, however you want to look at it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Everybody who's come to us with either herpes, Epstein-Barr, or HIV, after we work with them, some people, after we submit their photograph through this process, some of those people go back and they get a PCR test, and invariably there's no viral load for herpes, Epstein-Barr, or HIV. Now, that cannot be proven by Western science. And frankly, I'm not working with Western science. I'm working with the new science. Mm-hmm. But nonetheless, there is a gaining body of evidence that everybody that we work with, if they had a viral infection, follow-up PCR testing proves they no longer have the virus. There's no viral load whatsoever.
I think that's really good. And I mean, even though PCR testing is sort of, there's pieces around that anyways, but I think anytime you can incorporate, because these are transitional sciences, right? It's like we're moving from one paradigm literally into another. And there's this, you can't validate this in the same way that we would validate what we currently use. So we're trying to figure out this way of sort of transitioning from one to another, and we're looking for ways to try and create some sort of validation with what we know as we move towards something that's really in a completely different paradigm. And we don't really have the tools to validate in the way that we like to see things validated. So then it's very easy to sort of say, well, there's no science to prove it. Well, that's a very complex conversation to have. But I do like that there was some stuff like that too, because I think that still gives people some evidence, and it lets them see some objective measurements for change. When back to the area on consciousness, I wanted to tap into, because scalar energy is consciousness. When we are even incorporating, say, when you're focusing scalar energy towards the photograph, is it make any difference then of the state of consciousness that the person is technically, quote unquote, receiving it, and the state of consciousness of the person sending it? Do we need to create, is there going to be more benefit if you can create a certain more powerful field to be able to, I think of it as like bathing in the energy in a specific field?
I think if a person is accepting of this energy, it will augment, accelerate the healing. Yes. So I would caution that, once again, the way we think, the way we feel is going to play out in our lives. Many people have experienced very rapid healing through this method, and they were positive, and they accepted this. They did not discount this. Now, I will also say that I work with cats and dogs, and they still experience a healing. Okay, what's my point? Well, I've never had a conversation with a cat and dog about scalar energy. But nonetheless, they are healed and their health improves. Meaning what? Even though you're oblivious to this, that you still are going to see the benefit.
Yeah. And I think in some ways it might even be easier with cats and dogs because there's less of the head to kind of get in the way, and they're just sort of open and allowing of whatever might sort of come to them.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think as humans, we tend to get a little bit more cognitive, and sometimes that's where we can get stuck a little bit.
Yes, exactly, doctor. Yeah.
Okay, as we're starting to wind down here, from your perspective, how are we able to start to use scalar energy to put an end to the energy crisis?
Yeah. Okay, go back to my earlier thought. If this is star energy, well, That's the perfect power plant, isn't it? Stars. What's my point? We won't have to create a power plant in the future. Nikola Tesla was able to capture radiant energy or scalar energy and power a tower. He had a tower in Long Island, New York, a scalar energy tower, and he was able to illuminate light bulbs with that tower. Now, this is the future. We're not going to create a power plant. We're simply going to capture the power plant of the stars. It's so simple. And we're almost there. We're getting very close to that.
When people are experiencing a scalar energy session, is there anything that they report feeling? Is there anything they're supposed to do? Or do they just put in the photograph and then they go about their day? Is there a specific time they need to sit or focus on anything? Or is it all done just non-locally and they don't have to do anything else?
People don't have to do a thing. And that's what a lot of people like. We have busy lives. People simply say, Tom, here's my photograph. Work with me. I want to feel better. And I do the rest. The energy does the healing, so to speak. Now, the point being is, no matter where you're at, your occupation, your age, your genetic predisposition, doesn't matter. Scalar energy always works. It's a fundamental life force energy. And most people initially experience the bliss of the chakra balancing. They will experience a state of happiness because of the chakra balancing. And I just treated myself for the pathogenic cleanse. My mouth is clean. I don't have a biofilm. My sinuses are clean. I feel that the bacteria and the fungi that accumulated overnight, it's been cleansed. I've eradicated viruses, bacteria, and fungi, and I feel now clean, a very clean sense of taste, no biofilm on my tongue or on my teeth. My sinuses are clear. That's a pathogenic cleanse, all done by way of a photograph. And it's the wonderment of scalar energy. It transcends time and space. We work with people around the world by way of a photograph. You do not have to change your lifestyle. We do the work with your photograph.
You know, it reminds me of almost like this ongoing focused prayer that's connected to your individual signature. So it's going to directly kind of go to that individual, and the focused intent or focused prayer is what the information that you kind of put into the scalar field.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And let me say this about the instruments that I have. These instruments allow me to control, have mastery over the chakras, or have mastery over, say, a germ, a microbe, or have mastery to the extent that I can create a vitamin. Now, this is mastery over physical forms. I mean every word of that. I can create a molecule that's favorable, or I can break apart a microbe that's harmful. So scalar energy is going to allow us to have mastery, dominion over nature.
I find it fascinating, and I'm excited to see what comes of it more and more as I think consciousness keeps shifting to allow more and more and become more accepting of some of these new technologies. Tom, where can people learn more about the work that you're doing? I know you also offer a 15-day free trial on your website. How does this work? Where can people gain more of this information?
The website is scalarlight.com. And we would like to work with everybody in the world at least once for free. So anybody in the world can sign up, send in your photographs. We work with your emailed photograph, and we'll treat your entire family for free for 15 days. Now, include your friends if they agree, and by all means, include your pets. And that way you can be the benchmark to see how you feel, and then your family members can likewise substantiate how they feel while going through this process. And another great indication is your dog or your cat. I have a Saint Bernard. I treat him every day. He's a very healthy dog. He doesn't have any bacterial infection. So the point is, when you have that point of reference in your family, and a number of people in your family sign up for these free sessions, you'll see how their health improves. And that way you can compare notes, so to speak.
Once people do it, does it need to be ongoing, or is it done for a certain period of time?
Some people will sign up for a month, and then lay off for a couple months. Some people feel the benefits are so extraordinary that they'll sign up. We have actually a year-long program, a 12-month program. So we leave that up to people because everybody's unique. So we try not to in any way influence that. We leave it up to people.
Wonderful. Tom, thank you so much. I'll make sure all of those links are in the show notes below, so you can check out the website, you can check out the 15-day trial. I think anytime you get a chance to try something for free, give it a try. Stay open, see what happens. Get a benchmark of where you are, and then reassess after your 15 days and see what you notice. And then write us back. Let us know how it went. Tom, thank you so much. I really appreciate that conversation.
Thank you, Doctor. Yeah, likewise.